Hello and welcome to my video tutorial, which we'll be looking at Always Know Where You Are, the song written by Johnny Reznik of the Goo Goo Dolls for the 2004 movie Treasure Planet, which plays throughout the credits and sung on the original soundtrack by B.B Mak. First thing we're going to look at is the tuning. It's not standard. Actually, a lot of the songs are impossible to play in standard almost and don't sound anywhere near the same. So this tuning is not one of the hardest ones he has. It's actually very manageable for an electric and acoustic. You're only going to raise one string, and that's the B string. So we'll look at the tuning now. The low E, the A, and the D, the bottom three strings, will all have to be tuned down to C. So low E down to C, A down to C, and D down to C. All C. Don't raise the A to the nearest C. Don't raise it. You want to lower all of them to C. So they drone like that together. The G string stays the same as in standard. It's G. And like I said, we're going to raise the B string to a C. Now, that's actually not as tricky as you might think. If your B string is super eroded and you tune it way too fast, it could snap. I haven't had any issues with that happening. But just tune it slowly and it should be fine. Yeah, see how you go. The high E string will be lowered to a G. So that makes it C, 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 G, C, G. And you can see already that sounds nice and open. Not too different from open C, in fact. And I would get an app tuner, I think, and maybe use a custom setting to deal with this tuning if you can't get it on another tuner. Yeah, so the intro that I played, the chords that I played in the beginning are the intro, and they're also the chorus. And what's in between that is just the verse and the pre-chorus. So some very simple basic parts that repeat, not too much to think about there. The trickier part is the slower part where he sings in a more subdued way, in which you've got to kind of figure out how you're going to match up the notes and the chords to the singing. But we'll look at that shortly. So for the intro, which is also, like I said, the chorus, you're going to use these two fingers a whole lot, pretty much all the time. The ring finger and the pinky. Get your ring finger, place it on the 12th fret of the D string. Ring finger on the 12th fret of the G. And you're going to do that sort of thing. Down, 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 down. Next, you're going to use your index finger to play the 9th fret of the G. So you're going to come off this here, and I'll close in a bit. You're going to play that twice, aren't you? And you want to lift the fingers off and play the strings open so you can get that index finger on that note. And then from that 9th on the G, you're going to slide it up like that to the 10th. So it'll be down, up, slide. Sort of like that. And just do it slowly and you'll work it out. And then, of course, you pull it off to the open with this upstroke. If you throw in a bit more ups and downs in there, it doesn't really matter, as long as you've got that feel to it. And you'll come to the open strings, which leads you to bring the ring finger and the pinky up to the 5th fret of the low E and A, which you'll be playing a lot on a lot of these two strings most of the time, and you'll go. You'll slide between them. So all together we'll have and you'll do that whole section again, and then the third time, when we're considering the intro, the third time you'll go and that's simply moving the shape up from 5, 7, moving it up to 9, and then to 11. And then after that, the verse kicks in with the lyrics. Let's look at the verse. You were just on 11, and with the verse, you're going to start with your same two fingers on the 12th fret of the low E and the A, and you're going to kind of do these. You're going to play on and off the strings. Maybe a down, holding them, and lift your fingers off and playing up. Slide that shape to the 7, and you have these two stabs. Next, you go back to 12, and then it will be 9, and then back to 12, and then to end you have this big ending part, which is the 9 to the 7. So altogether that verse should look like. And sounds a bit messy on this electric that's flapping around a little bit, but without the drums and the other instruments, it does sound like that's how bare apart it is. So it might be something like, it's good to feel the sun, feel this place. So that's how it would kind of go. Now, I apologize, I'm not the best at singing it. So that's the verse, and then what's after that is obviously the somehow I feel. And that leads you back into the chorus. Now that part will just be a lot of the same chords I've already seen. So maybe you want to start it on the 9. Move it to the 7, 5, 4, 2, open. And I play around with those chords. So let's just go through it. It might be like starting from the verse. And you see how playing those chords, going down them and then gradually coming back up them, leads you straight back into the chorus. If you want to play, you don't have to always play right up to that 11. You can probably play and get away with that. It just depends how you're singing it. So that will work fine. You're just trying to get back to this big chorus. So those are basically all the parts to the song. They just keep repeating. There's just one exception where the after the, I think, second chorus, it comes to that part where it's a lot more subdued and slow, where he's like, now feel so strong and I've been... To play that part, all you're going to do is use the same chords we've seen, and maybe play the bottom of the chord and pick some notes. Just pick the open strings. Doesn't matter which notes, it doesn't matter which open strings you sort of pick, because it all will be in key. It just will have to sync up with the lyrics. So you'd ease into it slowly with it. Now I feel so strong and I'm gonna be the one I'd never... Sort of like that. And then you'll, coming out of the subdued singing, it starts to build again, where he says, not alone, I always know, I always know. Sort of like that. It builds back up through the when you come back, because you're heading back into that big chorus anyway. So and I might just end it with playing all the open strings. So all those parts are quite manageable. The only part where you got to approximate a bit and watch your timing is when you're singing the slower part. I'm still kind of working it out because I haven't sung to it, but I can imagine how you could muck around quite a bit with that however you prefer. I wouldn't be too rigid with it. I would just experiment with these chords I've shown you. And you'll be matching up your voice to those chords. And those are like the basic parts. And I would just practice all of that, and it just works itself out on its own, I find. So I hope that helped. There's no one else really showing how this is supposed to be done on the internet. There's a lot of covers, but a lot of people's requests are dismissed. So I'm kind of filling that gap as much as I can. Drop me a line or some feedback if you have any questions about this approach, and I'll get back to you. Cheers.